If you're a manager who's just been given access to your team's survey results, this video will help you understand where to find the results, how to navigate your account, as well as giving you a brief understanding of what to look for in your results. When you first log into WeThrive, you'll land on your home page. Here you'll be able to see all the survey results that have been shared with you on the left and any actions that have been assigned to you. To view your survey dashboard, click on the blue link under the Surveys heading. The survey dashboard is where to get an overall picture of what's going on in your team and where you can view the extra feedback staff have given. You may have some filters applied to your graph, so you're looking at the results for a specific group of employees. You'll notice the completion rate for your team as the first statistic, and you can see how this compares to the overall completion rate. You can also see exactly how many of your staff are included in these results. Next, you have your team's overall engagement score, and you can see how this compares to the overall score for the whole organization. Then you have the number of actions created and completed for your team, and we'll show you how to create an action later on. Underneath your key statistics, there's a graph showing your team's average scores across the 16 areas of the 4C model. If you need a refresher on the 4C model and what we're measuring, we suggest viewing the 4C model webinar, which explains each area of the model in more detail and why it's important. But you can also hover over each bar for a quick recap. The bars on the graph represent the average scores in your team, and you can also see the minimum and maximum scores given in each area. Remember, it may not necessarily be the same person who's scored lowest across all the areas. In fact, it's quite likely it won't be. You can use these two lines to get a sense of whether there's a lot of variation in the way your people feel or whether everyone feels similarly. The closer the lines, the more similar everyone in your team feels about that area. So let's take a look at an actual chart for the finance department in this imaginary company, but using very realistic demonstration data. And you can see that on average, the picture isn't too bad in terms of how much of the time people feel connected to company and customers, over 70%. Likewise for their personal performance expectations, their knowledge, skills, how secure they feel, and how meaningful life is. But the average picture conceals a number of things. If you look at the maximum and minimum lines, the top and bottom grey lines, you can see there are some areas where individual experience is widely different from the average. So take a look at team cooperation, for example, how much of the time people feel the team are actually on the same page. That varies from 90% of the time to only 10% of the time for at least one individual in this group of 11 people. There are some areas where their experience is more similar. They are much more likely to report that they all feel life is reasonably under control. They self-rate their available knowledge and skills reasonably highly. So what does this picture actually tell us? I think you could say, because of the step down from personal performance to team understanding, you could say that while people understand what they're supposed to be doing on average, they're not completely confident that the people around them have the same picture. And that's probably one of the things that's limiting the amount of time people can actually cooperate in practice. So there's definitely something to be done about communication in this group of people. There might be other reasons, though, why they don't cooperate all the time. The resources bar is relatively low compared to knowledge and skills. That suggests that there's a lot of time in which people actually don't have access to the resources they need in order to be able to do their work well. So it's possible that part of the team cooperation problem is due to competition for resources. This probably goes alongside the relatively low score on common bond. This group, on average, don't feel as much a part of a team, as much a part of something bigger than themselves as you'd really like. So that may be for the same reasons that they're not cooperating, or there might be other reasons. Either way, it's definitely a cause for a conversation. And there are things to be found out about why they don't feel part of one real unit. The other thing in the first three areas that's really worth pointing out is that the status bar is lower than would be comfortable on average. And certainly for some of the individuals in this group, it is too low, really. At least one person saying that they only really feel acknowledged 30% of the time. And this is one of the main motivators. If you're thanked, if you're acknowledged, if you're considered to have done well by your peers, then you're much more likely to put in effort and work hard to help the team get their jobs done. So this is something many companies don't do as well as they might, and certainly in this group it would be very useful, I'm sure, to do something about acknowledging individuals and the team's performance. Looking at the well-being indicators, on average people feel very secure, but there's at least one person who doesn't. That needs investigating because there'll be a specific reason probably that looks like probably one outlier who doesn't feel at all secure in this job. It might be somebody who's new or somebody whose job's under threat. Whatever it is, it would be useful to find out. The picture for control is better. People feel that life is under control at work. Headspace, again, very variable. There's at least one person here who's spinning, doesn't really have time to think, and that probably is causing difficulties for colleagues, and it may be causing inaccuracy and repeat work and problems with what the customers are receiving and so on. Average picture on freedom from anxiety, from worry, is not too bad, but again, there's at least one person in there who's suffering quite a lot, and you just need to have a conversation to find out why. But the good news is that overall, people find their work very meaningful, and that's great because it's one of the main reasons we do anything, is because we find some sort of meaning and purpose in it. Put together with the company and customers picture, people feel that they have a good connection to why they're there, what they're working for, who they're ultimately serving, and they find it meaningful. So that's a good start and a good end for this group, but there are some details in the middle which, if you could unpick them, unravel them, do something about them, would make working life better, and undoubtedly would make this team perform better and more as a team as well. You may be wondering what classes as a good score. It's rare to reach scores of 100%. Nothing's perfect. There are always things that could be improved. As a general rule of thumb, we'd say that anything that's scored under 66% is well worth looking at in more detail, because it means that less than 2/3 of the time your team have everything they need in order to be able to perform well in that area. It's most useful to look at your scores, though, in relation to each other. Scroll down slightly and you'll find the coaching actions. Now, the system pulls out the 3 lowest scoring areas from the red, orange and green areas of the 4C model, the cognitive, capability and connection areas, and also the lowest scoring areas from the blue confidence section. We look at the blue section separately. These are well-being indicators as we see them. You can't directly affect these areas of work. You can't make someone feel more secure, but they're often impacted and influenced by the other areas of the model. So if, for example, a team scores low in control, it may be because they lack the necessary resources to get all of their work done. So you'll start to see how all of the areas are interconnected. You can view your top priority actions along with the average score for the area and the number of people who gave further insights in that area. That is, the number of people who scored the area as one of their lowest scores and therefore were given the follow-on questions on the second page of the survey to find out how it could be improved. So you can start to get an idea of how many people in your team are finding something particularly challenging. Click on the Read More button to expand each action, and here you can view the extra feedback these employees have given, along with some coaching recommendations to help you think about how to act on this. So, for example, let's take common bond, that sense of togetherness, being part of something bigger than yourself. Here you see the number of people who gave further insights, meaning the number of people who gave extra feedback about how the feelings of common bond could be improved. These people also said how many percent of the time they feel that this particular problem exists and what the root of it might be. When viewing this feedback, look for the higher percentages, because the higher the percentage, the stronger or more dominant that feeling is within the group. If you decide that this is something you'd like to act on, you can view some learning resources in our Academy that relate specifically to that challenge. Just click on the View Resources button and you'll be taken to a page in the Academy with the related resources. After reading around the subject, if you decide you want to act on the opportunity, you can go back to your survey dashboard and click the Create Action button. This will create an action in our action tracking tool, and you can then monitor your progress and mark it as completed once it's been done to your satisfaction and the team feel there's nothing else needs doing about it at the moment. You also have your reports page. Now, this is a different view through the data, and it's a place where you can compare different groups of people, or if you have the non-anonymous version of WeThrive, you can actually compare individual scores in the team. Now, you can do this by switching the team filter to individual if that hasn't already been done for you. But for now, we'll look at a particular department. The scores on the left are the overall scores for the group of people that this report has been filtered to. The purple bar is your overall engagement score, and the 4 colours are the averages for the 4 areas of the 4C model. If you have multiple groups within that department, you'll have a breakdown of different groups' results to compare side by side. However, if your report's been filtered to look at one particular group of people, you may find the overall bars on the left and the bars on the right show exactly the same scores. This just means that there isn't a further breakdown of the results, and the bars on the left and the right include the same set of people. If this is the case, then just use the survey dashboard graph to look at the scores. When you scroll down, you can view the different areas of the 4C model in more detail. For example, the second chart shows the 4 red areas: company and customers, personal performance, team understanding, and team cooperation for the different groups in your view. The reports page is also where you can find the strengths and opportunities. Click on the blue button and you'll be taken to 2 tabs with a list of comments given to the 2 optional questions: what's great about working here and what's one thing you'd change for the better. If there are no comments here, these questions may not have been included in the original survey, or the group of people you're seeing in your report may not have left any comments. Going back to the reports graph, you also have the team comments available. Now, these are the comments made on the second page of survey questions, where employees are asked for free text feedback on how their lowest scoring areas could be improved. You may not have lots of comments in this section. That's because employees don't provide comments for every area, only the lowest scoring ones. The comments are separated into 4 tabs for each area of the model, and they are completely anonymous. You can use the team comments to get some context as to why certain areas have scored low, and they can provide some constructive feedback on where improvements can be made. You will, by the way, if there are fewer than 4 people in the particular group that's been filtered to interview, you won't see any team comments at all. That's just to preserve anonymity. Finally, going back to the reports page, if you want to work with the scores and comments offline, you can export all the results using the 2 blue buttons: Export Scores and Export Comments.